sorry, because I ran.
No, Maya, you didn't do wrong. And we won't let them.
Seattle rain soaks the platform as Noah Voss, a sleepless Neuron Forge CEO, catches an 8-year-old who collides into him and whispers, "Pretend you're my coach." 2 guards shove through the crowd. Noah crouches, wraps the boy in his hoodie. A frayed llama charm swings from the kid's backpack. Who's chasing Leo, and why does he trust a stranger more than home? South Lake Union wore its usual midnight shine. Glass towers, quiet shuttle loops, rain pinned to the streetlights like static. Noah Voss pressed his palm to the cold elevator rail and told himself to breathe. The boardroom's blue screens were still glowing upstairs, a constellation of charts that said nothing about what kept him awake. He was 38, all sharp angles and runner's calm, hoodie pulled over a black tee, jeans, clean sneakers. A brilliant face ruined by a tired ache between his eyes. He pushed through the turnstile of Neuron Forge's lobby, nodded at the sleepy guard, and stepped into the drizzle the city's. Reflected lights made a wavering river in the crosswalk. In his pocket, the small weight he always carried knocked against his fingers. A palm-sized robot keychain, raspberry red, one eye painted on by a child with a shaky hand. Years ago, he had spent a Saturday at Harborview, building tiny bots with kids who could not go home yet. The girl who made this one had called it Brave. He had promised to bring the real thing to her floor one day. She had gone home before he did, and then the project stalled. Hestia should be shelved until the 4th quarter, a director had said hours earlier, voice smooth as ice. The market is not ready for humanitarian robotics. Defense is predictable. Hospitals are slow to adopt. Noah had stared at the table's reflection of his face. He could have argued. He could have forced a vote. Instead, he had felt an old fog roll in. He pressed the keychain to his palm and nodded like a man who knew the map better than the road. Outside, the air tasted like metal. A streetcar rattled by. The ripples on Lake Union were dark and tight, the way water looks when a storm holds its breath. He thumbed a text to Plea, his COO. "We parked Hestia. I hate that sentence." Her reply came fast, as if she had been waiting. "We paused Hestia. Words matter. Sleep. Run in the morning. I will rework the adoption plan." Another buzz. "Owen Park, head of trust and safety. You looked like you were chewing glass in there. Want me to leak the roadmap to spook the board into courage?" Noah half smiled. "Not tonight. Go home." He tucked the phone away and lifted his hood. The rain was clean and steady. He walked south toward the light rail, past the dark cafes and the last couples arguing softly under awnings. He passed a bakery that left its chalkboard out to collect the rain. Someone had written, "Try again tomorrow." The chalk was melting into a pink smear. His reflection ghosted across each storefront. The same man he had been at 25 and at 35, the same jaw, the same restless eyes behind minimalist frames. He thought of the words he could have said. "We build to save lives, not only to secure contracts. We build for the kid who called the toy brave." He thought of the moment he did not say them. At a corner, he paused for the walk sign and caught his breath. He had been a cross-country kid once, a boy who wore a watch upside down so the face pressed his skin. He remembered the warm pinch of the strap when a coach pulled him close after a race that felt like failure. "Listen," the coach had whispered, voice steady. "You are more than the clock. You are how you finish the light turned white." The city's hum lifted as if on cue. He moved with the small tide of late-shift techs, baristas, nurses walking toward the underground stairs. The smell changed on the steps. Wet wool, brake dust, something like rain and copper. Down the escalator, the station opened, bright and echoing. A rectangle of tile and advertisements that promised faster, smarter, better. He checked the arrival board. 4 minutes. He shook rain from his sleeves and scanned the platform. Couples, a man in a delivery jacket asleep against a pillar, a teen with a cello case, a security guard sipping coffee he probably should not have on duty. The guard's radio crackled and stilled. Noah leaned against a tiled column and rolled the robot keychain between thumb and forefinger. He imagined a different meeting. He imagined shipping Hestia to flood zones by fall. He imagined going back upstairs, waking the board with coffee, and refusing the word shelved. The rails hummed. Wind sighed through the tunnel, the preface to a train. He looked up. A small figure at the far end of the platform was running. Not running the way commuters run, with a bag and a glance at the clock, but running the way a frightened animal runs. Elbows pulled in, eyes pinned to the ground until they must look up. Noah straightened. The boy cut through a knot of people, slipped on wet tile, moving. There was a sound behind him, heavy footsteps and a voice calling to no one in particular. The robot keychain clicked against Noah's knuckles. He did not know why, but his chest tightened as if an old rope had been pulled. The train's headlights curved into view. The boy looked up, eyes wide and wild in the bright platform glow. The train screeched into the station, brakes sparking, headlights washing the wet tiles in silver. Noah barely had time to adjust his footing before the boy slammed into him. Small, rain-soaked breath tearing through his chest. "Please," the boy gasped, his voice thin but desperate. "Pretend you're hugging me, like you're my coach." Noah blinked, instinct taking over. He dropped into a crouch, steady arms wrapping around the trembling frame. His hoodie clung damp against the boy's shoulders. With a calm, practiced tone he hadn't used since his own running days, Noah murmured, "There you are, champ. Missed you after practice." The boy stiffened, then melted into the embrace, fingers twisting the drawstring of Noah's hoodie as if it were a lifeline. His backpack sagged from one strap, soaked through, a frayed llama charm dangling off the zipper. Two men in dark uniforms pushed through the thinning crowd. Their jackets bore a private security patch, though the insignia was one Noah didn't recognize. Eyes sharp, movements aggressive, they scanned the platform until their gaze locked on the boy. "Leo Alvarez," one barked, voice clipped. "You're out of bounds." "Let's go, Leo." The name hung between them. Noah tightened his hold, rose slowly to his full height, keeping the boy pressed to his side. "Evening," he said evenly, his voice carrying the corporate polish he'd honed over years of pitching impossible futures to skeptical investors. "Who exactly are you, and why are you hassling my player after practice?" The taller guard frowned. "We're contracted by Cedar Ridge Transitional Home." "He belongs with us." Belongs. The word cut twos. Sharp, Noah felt the boy flinch at it. He studied the men. Shined boots, clean gear, but their paperwork looked flimsy. A wrinkled printout folded in half. No official state seal. Noah's tone shifted, casual but edged. "Funny, most transitional homes I've dealt with send CPS caseworkers, not private security. Who signed your transfer order?" The shorter guard lifted the paper. "We don't answer to you." "You will if you're detaining a minor without proper authority," Noah countered, voice cool. He slipped his phone from his pocket, screen glowing as he thumbed the camera on. "Seattle PD will want to review this. So will Cedar Ridge's licensing board. Go ahead, state your names for the record." The taller guard faltered, eyes flicking to the camera lens. "We don't have time for this." "Neither do I," Noah said, pulling the boy closer, his voice low and firm. "So unless you can show a valid chain of custody, with a judge's stamp or a CPS directive, you're not taking him anywhere." A tense silence settled over the platform. The guards exchanged a glance, calculation in their eyes. Around them, commuters pretended not to stare but edged closer, drawn by the unfolding standoff. Finally, the taller one shoved the folded paper back into his pocket. "Fine. For now, but this isn't over." They stepped back, retreating toward the stairwell, muttering into radios as they disappeared into the drizzle above. The train doors slid open, passengers flowing in and out, but Noah stood rooted, feeling the boy's grip still locked on his hoodie. His breath slowed, but his heart hadn't yet caught up. "You're safe," Noah whispered, lowering his voice so only Leo could hear. "At least for now." Leo's face tilted up, water and tears indistinguishable in the harsh platform light. His voice cracked. "You don't let go." "Promise?" Noah swallowed, nodding once. He didn't say what flickered through his mind, that promises had cost him before. Instead, he pressed a hand against the boy's back and guided him off the platform. Somewhere between the sound of the train pulling away and the soft squeak of wet sneakers against tile, Noah realized he'd just stepped into a storm far bigger than he'd ever drawn on a whiteboard. Noah guided Leo up the slick station steps, the boy's small hand still gripping the drawstring of his hoodie as though letting go meant falling back into darkness. Outside, the rain hadn't eased. It came down in cold sheets, scattering commuters toward ride-shares and buses. Noah angled them beneath the shallow overhang of a closed cafe, trying to shield the boy from the worst of it. Leo shivered hard, hugging his soaked backpack. His eyes darted to every shadow, every corner. Noah recognized the look. It wasn't just fear of being caught. It was the kind of fear you carried after being told too many times you didn't matter. "All right," Noah said softly, adjusting his glasses. "Why don't you tell me what's really going on?" Before Leo could answer, the two security men reappeared, pushing through the wet crowd. They stopped short of the overhang, rain sliding down their jackets. "There he is," the tall one snapped. "This time we don't play." Noah stepped in front of Leo, his voice steady. "Hold on. You're claiming custody of a minor. Show me your documentation. Let me see the signatures, the authorizing agency, the timestamps. You know the law as well as I do. Without proper paperwork, you're just two men harassing a child." The shorter guard pulled out the folded sheet again, thrusting it toward him. Noah unfolded it with deliberate calm. The text was blurred from moisture, the letterhead generic. A line that should have carried a judge's seal was blank. Noah's hazel eyes narrowed. "This isn't valid. Chain of custody documents are notarized, and you don't get to haul an 8-year-old off a train platform because of a flimsy photocopy." The taller man bristled. "He's from Cedar Ridge Transitional Home." Behavioral case. Runaway. Leo pressed his face against Noah's sleeve. "I don't want to go back." The words were barely audible, but the tremor in them cut deeper than any paperwork. Noah looked directly at the men, his corporate polish slipping into something sharper. "If Cedar Ridge has legitimate custody, they'll need to send a certified child welfare officer. Not hired muscle. Until then, he's staying with me." Rain hissed against the pavement. A few bystanders slowed, phones half raised, sensing the weight of the confrontation. The shorter guard shifted uneasily, eyes flicking toward the lenses. The taller one sneered. "You think your smooth talk scares us?" Noah didn't flinch. "No, but public exposure does. So does Seattle PD, and you're one call away from explaining why you tried to remove a child without a legal directive." He held up his phone again, recording red light blinking. The men exchanged a look. After a long, taut moment, the taller guard growled, "We'll be back." "Don't think this ends here." They turned, retreating into the wet night. Noah exhaled, the tension slowly leaving his shoulders. He crouched again to meet Leo's eyes. "You did good," he said quietly. "You held on." Leo's gaze was wide, pleading. "They'll come again." Noah hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Then we'll be ready." The boy didn't let go of his hoodie string, not even when Noah guided him into the next alley to find shelter from the storm. The city's neon signs flickered overhead, fractured in puddles, each reflection another reminder. He'd just drawn a line he couldn't erase. The rain hadn't stopped by the time Noah swiped his keycard at a quiet brick building a few blocks from the rail line. The lock clicked, and the heavy glass door swung open. Inside, the co-working loft was dim but warm, a 24/7 space Neuron Forge maintained for employees burning through deadlines. Rows of desks, soft couches, vending machines humming. Security cameras winked red in the corners. Safe enough for now. "Come on," Noah murmured. "Let's get you dry." Leo hesitated in the doorway, sneakers dripping onto the mat, wide eyes darting to the glass walls as if the guards might still be out there. "You're okay," Noah said gently, shrugging off his hoodie and wrapping it around the boy's shoulders. The fabric nearly swallowed him whole, but Leo pulled it tight, burying his face in the collar like it was armor. The vending machine whirred, dispensing a styrofoam bowl of ramen. Noah filled it with hot water from the kitchenette, slid it across the table. "Eat," he urged. Leo's hands shook at first, but the smell of broth won out. He slurped greedily, steam rising against his damp hair. Between bites, his voice emerged, soft and halting. "I couldn't stay there anymore," he whispered. "They put me in the quiet room." Noah's chest tightened. "Quiet room?" Leo's eyes didn't lift from the noodles. "Under the laundry." Concrete floor. No window, just a mat and a bucket. If you cry too loud, they say you're behavioral. The word cracked in his throat. Noah leaned forward, his voice low, steady. "And your sister?" "You said something about her." Leo nodded, finally raising his gaze. His eyes were dark, haunted beyond his years. "Maya. She's 5. They said she cries too much. They'll put her down there too if they haven't already." Noah sat back, pulse thudding. A memory surfaced. The raspberry red robot keychain in his pocket, made by a girl who had spent months in a hospital wing. He had promised her the world could be kinder. Yet, here was a child telling him the system had buried kindness under concrete. He forced himself to breathe. "Leo," he said carefully, "do you know exactly where they keep her?" "Laundry room, left door. You go down some stairs. I can draw it." Noah pushed a napkin across the table, slid him a pen. With small, hurried strokes, Leo sketched crude hallways, arrows, a square labeled Maya. His hand trembled, but the map came clear enough. Noah studied it, jaw tightening. "You believe me?" Leo asked, searching his face, voice breaking. "Most grown-ups don't." Noah didn't hesitate. "Yes, I believe you." For a long moment, Leo's eyes filled, and then he clutched the hoodie tighter. The ramen bowl was nearly empty, broth cooling. Noah set it aside, tapped his phone screen, and called up Neuron Forge's telehealth network. Within minutes, a pediatrician appeared in a small window, asking gentle questions. Noah angled the camera toward Leo, careful not to force it. The boy answered quietly, describing bruises, long nights, the sound of vents above the quiet room. The doctor's brow furrowed, fingers moving as she documented everything. She gave Noah an urgent look through the screen. "This needs escalation." He shouldn't go back. When the call ended, Noah placed the phone down slowly. He had entered this building as a man weighed down by failed projects. Now he sat across from a boy who trusted him more than any system, who asked only for someone to believe him. Noah tightened his grip on the napkin map. A plan was forming in his head, something clear, testable, unstoppable. He leaned across the table. "Leo, I'm going to help you. And we're not leaving your sister behind." The boy exhaled, a small sound of relief, as if for the first time all night he believed safety was possible. Noah sat back in the chair, staring at the damp napkin map spread on the table between them. Lines sketched by an unsteady 8-year-old hand shouldn't carry this much weight, but here it was, a blueprint of a hidden place, a proof of something rotten. He rubbed his temples, forcing himself to shift gears. Not CEO mode, not boardroom mode. Something else, closer to the instincts that had carried him through late runs in the rain, one step at a time. Leo leaned into the hoodie, small voice muffled. "You'll go back for Maya, right? You said you believed me." Noah met his eyes. "I don't break promises." He reached for his phone again, but this time it wasn't. To call the pediatrician. It was to summon the only 2 people he trusted to help him move fast and smart. He fired off a secure ping to Plea. Need counsel and strategy. Emergency involving minors. My location, loft. Then a second to Owen Park. Possible systemic abuse at Cedar Ridge Transitional. Can you scrape records, confirm patterns, and prepare for exposure? He didn't expect answers this late, but both dots blinked green within minutes. Plea called first. Her voice carried a mix of sleep and steel. Tell me everything. Noah laid it out. The platform, the bogus paperwork, the terrified boy now sitting wrapped in his hoodie. He didn't filter, didn't soften. When he finished, the silence on the line stretched. Finally, Plea spoke. If what he says is true, we need to establish safety immediately. I'll draft a protective order, but you can't just walk in there. You know how the system works. They'll paint you as impulsive. Then we move by the book, Noah said. But faster, Owen patched in on video, his background a cluttered apartment wall plastered with sticky notes. He listened, eyes narrowing. Cedar Ridge. I've seen that name float through whistleblower threads. Budgets that don't add up. Sibling placements separated without cause. If Leo's map is accurate, it's worse than anyone's reported. Leo stirred at the sound of his own name. He peeked over the edge of the hoodie. They said if I told, no one would believe me. They said I was bad. Noah crouched beside him, voice low and steady. You're not bad, Leo. You're brave. You ran, and now someone finally hears you. The boy's eyes shimmered. He pressed the frayed llama charm against his lips like a talisman. Noah rose, looking between the faces on his screen. Here's the plan. Plea, you secure legal coverage, emergency protective filing if possible. Owen, start pulling everything you can, funding reports, vendor contracts, anything that shows Cedar Ridge profits by keeping kids apart. I'll hold Leo here, safe. Tomorrow, we make our move for Maya. Plea's voice was crisp. This isn't just about one rescue. If Cedar Ridge has done this to others, we'll need evidence strong enough to withstand a smear campaign. Owen nodded. I'll build a timeline. Patterns don't lie. Noah ended the call, the room quiet again except for the hum of the vending machine and Leo's slow breathing. He sank into the chair opposite, staring at the hoodie-swallowed boy clutching a llama charm. He thought of Hestia, the shelved project built to carry fragile lives through disaster zones. The board had called it unmarketable, too naive. But this wasn't about market timing. This was about a child who needed someone to use their grown-up voice and refused to fold. For the first time in months, Noah felt clarity cut through the fog. He leaned forward, speaking as if to himself but loud enough for Leo to hear. Tomorrow, we start. Step 1. Verify your story. Step 2. Make sure you're safe. Step 3. Get Maya out. Leo blinked, almost daring to smile. You sound like when coaches make a plan. Noah let a small smirk tug at his lips. That's because we're a team now. And in that quiet loft, with ramen bowls cooling on the table and rain hammering the city outside, a promise was sealed that would change both of their lives forever. By dawn, the loft's floor-to-ceiling windows glowed with a gray wash of rain-filtered light. Leo slept curled on the couch, the hoodie draped around him like a shield, the llama charm pressed tight in his fist. Noah hadn't closed his eyes all night. He sat at a desk across the room, screens alive with messages from Plea and Owen. The plan was in motion, but the system was faster than he expected. A sharp buzz from the intercom broke the silence. Seattle, CPS. Open the door. Noah's gut tightened. He crossed the loft and checked the camera feed. A woman in a soaked trench coat stood at the threshold, badge lifted. Beside her, a precinct. Detective shifted his weight, expression unreadable. Noah opened the door halfway, keeping his body angled. Can I help you? The woman's tone was clipped, professional. Karen Delaney, Child Protective Services. This is Detective Rourke. We're here to take custody of Leo Alvarez and return him to Cedar Ridge Transitional Home. We have a voluntary return form for you to sign, Behind him, Leo stirred awake at the name. His small voice carried across the room. No. Noah glanced back, then leveled his gaze on Delaney. Voluntary return? Yes, she said. He absconded from a licensed facility. He needs to be placed back immediately for his own well-being. Noah extended a hand. May I see the documentation? She produced a form, laminated to protect from the rain. Noah scanned it carefully. No judge's stamp, no emergency order, just a generic intake note with Cedar Ridge's letterhead. His jaw clenched. This doesn't compel me to sign, he said evenly. It's not a court order, Elaine's. Smile was tight. You're a single man, Mr. Voss. No children, no spouse. You lack training in foster care. Right now you're harboring a runaway. That's an impulsive, emotional decision that could hurt him more than help. The detective's eyes flicked between them, less certain. Ma'am, he said carefully, maybe we should… Delaney cut him off. The child belongs in our care. Noah's voice sharpened. No, he belongs somewhere safe, not in a basement cell with a bucket. Her expression faltered for half a second before smoothing again. That's an outrageous accusation. Noah stepped aside, gesturing to the nearest monitor. With a few clicks, he pulled up security footage from the night before, the two guards on the platform, attempting to seize Leo without proper paperwork. The video played in silence, the boy's trembling frame visible in Noah's arms. Detective Rourke leaned closer, frown deepening. That's… concerning. Delaney's jaw tightened. Out-of-context footage. This isn't admissible. What matters is the facility's license and his placement. Noah folded his arms, steady. What matters is that he's a child, not a revenue stream. You want me to hand him over? Bring a proper order, signed and sealed. Until then, he stays here, with counsel, with medical records already filed, and with a digital trail documenting every word of this visit. The detective studied Noah, then Delaney. Finally, he stepped back. I'm not comfortable pressing this without review. Delaney shot him a look that could have cut glass. She turned back to Noah. You're making a mistake. People will say you're unstable, using this boy for your own narrative. Noah didn't blink. Say what you like. But I have more than words, and I'm not the only one watching anymore. He nodded toward Owen's live feed pulsing on the corner monitor. Delaney's lips thinned. She shoved the laminated form back into her folder. We'll be back. The door shut behind them. The loft went quiet, except for Leo's. Uneven breathing. He'd pulled the hoodie over his head, but his eyes peered out, wet and wide. They want to send me back, he whispered. Noah crouched by the couch, his voice steady but low. I told you, Leo. I don't break promises. They won't take you. Not like this. He brushed the llama charm with one finger. We're going to get Maya. And when they come again, we'll be ready with the truth. The boy nodded, small shoulders trembling, but his grip on the hoodie didn't loosen. The rain tapered off by mid-morning, but inside the loft the storm only thickened. Owen's laptop fans whirred as he leaned over a jumble of screens, coffee forgotten beside him. Plea had claimed the whiteboard, marker strokes sharp as she mapped timelines and legal triggers. Noah stood between them, arms crossed, Leo's napkin map folded in his back pocket like a mission order. Patterns don't lie, Owen said, tapping a spreadsheet full of dates and dollar signs. Cedar Ridge files higher complex care rates. Every time they separate siblings. 3 past adoption dissolutions, all after they split kids apart. Then, boom, higher billing, longer stays. Leo hovered nearby, clutching the llama charm, listening with the intensity of someone far older than 8. Plea circled a set of names on the board. These adoption dissolutions were sealed, but not airtight. I pulled fragments through an old contact. Each case involves siblings labeled behavioral. That's how they justified isolation rooms. They create the problem, then profit from it. Noah's jaw flexed. And oversight? Paper audits only, she said flatly. The licensing board's drowning. Facilities self-report. As long as the numbers balance, no one digs. Owen swiveled a screen toward Noah. Whistleblower forums. A caseworker posted last year under a pseudonym. If kids cry, they call it defiance. If siblings cling, they call it attachment disorder. We're told to separate and medicate. No names, no proof. But paired with Leo's testimony, it's damning. The boy's eyes dropped to the floor. They called me defiant. Said I made Maya worse, but I was just trying to keep her from crying. Noah crouched, steadying his voice. You weren't defiant, Leo. You were protecting her. The boy's lip trembled, but he nodded once. Noah rose, turning back to Plea and Owen. This isn't just about saving 2 kids. If we expose Cedar Ridge, we'll set a precedent, but they'll hit back hard. Owen's smirk was tired but sharp. Good. I like a fight where the facts are on our side. Plea capped the marker, meeting Noah's gaze. Then we need to prepare for every angle. Legal, financial, public. You're a CEO, Noah. Use that. Control the narrative. Frame this like product failure in a regulated market. People understand systems. They'll rally if we show them the broken mechanics, not just the heartbreak. Noah paced, the old rhythm of a product sprint settling into his bones. Define the problem, test the claim, build the prototype. For change. Only this time, the stakes weren't investors. They were lives. He paused at the window, rain streaks glistening against the glass. We'll show them the debt. Not in dollars, in moral debt. Every child left in a basement mat is a liability no system should carry. Behind him, Leo's small voice broke the silence. They're going to hurt Maya because I left. I know it. Noah turned, crouching again, meeting his eyes level. Not if we move fast. And not if we make enough noise that they can't hide. Owen pushed his chair back. I'll start drafting a receipts-heavy timeline. FOI. A. Requests. Vendor invoices for those so-called behavioral retrofits. Memos from their funding sources. The pattern will collapse under its own weight. Priya's phone buzzed. She glanced down, then up. And I've got a judge's clerk willing to review an emergency petition. But we need first-hand testimony. Leo, would you be willing to tell what happened in your own words? The boy froze, then looked at Noah. His eyes asked the question his mouth couldn't. Will you still be here if I do? Noah didn't blink. I'll be right beside you. Leo swallowed hard, then nodded. Plea exhaled. Then we have what we need to start. The loft's hum of screens filled the space again. For the first time since the night began, the path forward was visible. Not easy, not safe, but visible. And yet, as Noah folded the napkin map once more, he knew visibility came with risk. Cedar Ridge would not stand idle. The storm had only just begun. The loft was still in shadow when Noah felt a tug at his sleeve. He blinked awake from the chair he'd dozed in, the glow of monitors painting the room blue. Leo stood in front of him, hair mussed, eyes wide and wet. They'll hurt her, the boy whispered, because I ran. Noah straightened, fatigue dropping away. Who? Maya, Leo said, voice breaking. If they know I'm gone, they'll punish her. They always do. Please. You have to use your grown-up voice. Make them listen. The plea carved into Noah like nothing in a boardroom ever had. He knelt until his eyes were level with the boy's. Leo, look at me. You didn't do wrong. You were brave. And we're not leaving her there. The boy's small fingers tightened on the hoodie drawstring. Promise? Noah felt the weight of it. Not a throwaway word, not tonight. Promise, he said, steady as steel. When he rose, Plea was already pacing, phone pressed to her ear. She'd caught the exchange. I'll activate counsel. We'll draft an emergency filing this morning. She hung up and faced Noah. If we go in half-prepared, they'll spin this into a PR stunt. We need airtight filings, medical records, a neutral advocate on site. Owen rolled his chair closer, eyes sharp. And we'll need optics. If Cedar Ridge tries to stonewall, cameras make it harder to bury. I can lock in a press pool, no leaks, just controlled access. Noah nodded slowly. Do it. Both of you, he turned back to Leo. You said Maya's under the laundry. Is that where they'll keep her? Leo nodded, eyes darting. They call it the quiet room. Stairs by the washers. It smells like bleach and wet concrete. If you cry too loud, they turn off the light. The words made Noah's chest burn. He laid a hand on Leo's shoulder. We'll get her out. And we'll make sure no one else ends up down there again. The boy's voice dropped to a whisper. They don't like when you make noise. Noah gave a grim smile. Then we'll be loud enough for both of you. Plea tapped the whiteboard with her marker. Here's the crisis protocol. Counsel on retainer. Pediatric trauma team on standby. I'll brief the advocate network. We enter Cedar Ridge on the record, with the lawful grounds and media oversight. If there's a Maya in that basement, we bring her out in daylight. Owen added, I'll build a red team model, predict their countermoves. False reports, staged photos, claims of behavioral issues. We'll preempt every card they might play. Noah listened, absorbing. It felt like a product sprint, only heavier. Instead of investors, it was a boy's sister. Instead of market fit, it was survival. He crouched one last time by Leo, speaking softly. You asked me to use my grown-up voice. I will, but I need yours too. When the time comes, you'll tell the truth. Can you do that? Leo hesitated, then gave a small, shaky nod. Good, Noah said. Then tomorrow, we don't just go back for Maya. We make sure that the whole world sees what Cedar Ridge has been hiding outside. Morning traffic began its slow crawl through South Lake Union, horns muffled by drizzle. But inside the loft, every face carried the same sharp light. The fight had shifted. They weren't reacting anymore, they were advancing. And in the corner, Leo clutched the llama charm close, as if he could already feel his sister's small hand in his again. By the time the gray morning lifted into a weak sun, Noah was buttoning a collared shirt under his hoodie. Plea stood by the loft door, holding a folder, thick, with legal papers. Owen typed furiously, eyes darting between feeds. The plan was no longer theory. Today, they went in. Leo sat on the couch, hugging his backpack. His voice was quiet, but sure. You'll find her, right? Noah crouched, steadying the boy with a hand on his shoulder. We will, and you won't be alone, outside Cedar Ridge. Transitional home, the parking lot buzzed with unusual activity. News vans idled at the curb, their antennas raised. Owen had worked fast, securing a small press pool under tight agreements, just enough light to make stonewalling dangerous. Noah walked beside Plea as they approached the double doors. A CPS advocate, neutral and licensed, joined them, clipboard in hand. We're here under emergency court order, Plea announced, passing papers to the receptionist. Her voice carried the calm authority of someone who had stood in this exact fight before. Within minutes, the facility director appeared, suit wrinkled, smile forced. This is highly irregular, he said. Our residents are safe. You're disrupting stability. Noah met his eyes, voice level. We're here to confirm the safety of one child. Transparency will protect everyone. The director's smile tightened. There's no Maya Alvarez in our records. Leo, standing just behind Noah, flinched. His whisper barely carried. She's here. Plea slid another document forward. Court-approved search. Neutral advocate present. Press access secured. The director's jaw flexed. You're making a scene. At that moment, the fire alarm shrieked. Red strobes flashed, a piercing wail filling the halls. Staff bustled, herding children toward exits. The director raised his voice over the din. Evacuation protocol! All visitors outside Noah's instincts screamed. He bent to Leo. Which way? The boy pointed, urgent. Laundry. Back hall, near the vending machines. Stairs down. The advocate caught Noah's eye, nodded once, and slipped into the stream of staff. While the evacuation chaos swirled, she veered off course, following Leo's whispered directions. Minutes dragged like hours. Noah kept Leo close, shielding him from the frantic movement around them. Plea argued firmly with staff at the doorway, insisting they remain on site. Owen's phone buzzed with a feed from inside. He had tapped into building security. One camera flickered on. Dim stairs, concrete walls, a door propped by a mop. Then, the advocate appeared on screen, her flashlight beam cutting through the dark. At the bottom of the stairs lay a small figure curled on a mat. A threadbare llama plush clutched tight in her hands. "Maya," Leo breathed, voice breaking. The advocate knelt, checked vitals, then lifted the frail girl into her arms. Maya's eyes blinked open, dry lips forming a whisper that carried faintly through the feed. "Leo?" The boy lurched forward, but Noah caught him gently. "She's coming. Hold on." When the advocate emerged from the stairwell with Maya trembling in her arms, the press pool cameras swung, like magnets. Flashbulbs popped. Gasps cut the air. The director's face drained of color. Noah bent as Leo rushed to his sister, wrapping small arms around her. She was weak, eyes half shut, but she whispered into his hoodie, "I heard you. I counted the vents. I knew you'd come." Noah straightened slowly, scanning the crowd, voice measured but carrying. This isn't about headlines. It's about children who should never be hidden in basements. Today, she comes into the light. For the first time, the director had no words. The courtyard outside Cedar Ridge was chaos. Press microphones shoved forward, children huddled near staff, the director shouting over the alarm. But Noah didn't raise his voice. He held Maya's frail form against his shoulder until the advocate steadied her, then guided Leo close so the siblings could clutch each other tight. The frayed llama plush hung between their small hands like a bridge they refused to let go of. Noah turned to the cameras, his words careful, deliberate. "This isn't about one family's drama. This is about a system that punishes children for being children. We've accrued moral debt in child welfare. Today we start paying it down." Reporters scribbled. Plea stepped forward with documents, medical notes, verified footage, facility invoices. Each page bore quiet proof that the problem wasn't just a rogue employee. It was built into the system's incentives. A journalist called out, "Mr. Voss, are you making this public for publicity?" Noah shook his head, hazel eyes steady behind his glasses. "If I wanted headlines, I'd spin a press release. What I want is accountability. What I want is for children like Leo and Maya to never again sleep in a basement because it makes someone money." Behind him, Owen adjusted a mic stand, ensuring the briefing streamed live with no sensational edits. He had already uploaded a systems map. Arrows, budgets, policy loopholes. The crowd could see how sibling separations inflated billing rates, how behavioral labels justified isolation. "This is tech debt," Noah explained, voice calm but sharp. "In business, when you cut corners, you accrue debt that slows progress until you fix it. Our child welfare system has accrued moral debt. Every hidden child is an unpaid liability. We must restructure, not ignore." The metaphor stuck. Phones buzzed as reporters tweeted it, sound bites spreading like sparks. The director attempted one last defense, stepping into the circle. "Cedar Ridge has served this community for years. We are licensed, inspected, and compliant. What you've seen is a distortion." Plea raised a hand, crisp. "Then explain these invoices. Why are funds allocated for behavioral isolation retrofits? Why are adoption dissolutions clustered around sibling separations? We have receipts." Cameras swung. The director paled, sweat lining his temple. Meanwhile, Maya stirred in Leo's arms, whispering so faint only Noah caught it. "I want to go home." Noah crouched, meeting her. Eyes. "You will. And not just you. We'll make sure no child is left behind in those rooms again." The advocate nodded, confirming. Maya required immediate medical evaluation, hydration, and trauma care. Plea had already called a pediatric team to meet them. As they prepared to leave, Owen leaned toward Noah. They'll hit back hard. Smear campaigns, doctored photos, friendly politicians calling you reckless. Noah adjusted his glasses, gaze never wavering. Then we anchor ourselves to truth. No shortcuts. Verified data, legal filings, children's voices. Let them call me naive. I'll take naive over complicit. The press clamored with more questions, but Noah raised a hand, ending the briefing. He guided Leo and Maya toward the waiting car, the llama plush bobbing between their clasped hands. As the doors closed, the last thing the cameras caught was a small boy pressing his sister's knuckles to his cheek, whispering with relief, "We're together now." And for the first time in years, Noah felt the fog inside him lift. Not fully gone, but pierced by something steadier than genius or ambition. It was purpose. The headlines hit within hours. By mid-afternoon, Noah's face was on every Seattle news feed. Tech CEO intervenes in alleged foster abuse. The footage of Maya emerging from the basement, clutching her llama plush, replayed endlessly. For a moment, it looked like momentum was theirs. But Cedar Ridge was ready. By evening, their counsel released a statement. Mr. Voss staged this incident for publicity. The child, Leo Alvarez, has a documented history of behavioral issues. Attached are photographs of repeated outbursts. Doctored photos flooded social media. Leo with a vandalized wall, Leo kicking a chair, Leo screaming in a staged restraint. The facility's allies amplified it, painting Noah as a reckless billionaire playing savior for attention. On TV, a friendly state senator wagged his finger. Well-meaning men like Mr. Voss don't understand the complexity of child welfare. His theatrics may have endangered the very children he claims to protect. At the loft, Noah stood behind Leo and Maya as Owen pulled up the smear campaign on the big screen. Leo's face went pale at the falsified images. "They'll believe that," he whispered. "They'll send me back." Noah knelt, his voice steady but burning with conviction. "Look at me, Leo. Lies collapse when truth stands taller, and we have the truth." Owen cracked his knuckles, smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "They want to fight? They've picked the wrong opponent. I've got timestamps, metadata, FOIA records, and invoices showing those rooms were built for isolation, not care. We'll bury the lies under receipts." Within hours, Owen published a meticulous timeline. Procurement orders for behavioral isolation retrofits, sealed memos instructing staff to label siblings as defiant, vendor invoices signed by the same administrators now crying foul. Every document was linked, verified, undeniable. Plea worked the legal channels, filing motions to admit the new evidence while also drafting protective measures for Leo and Maya. "The smear won't hold," she said firmly, "but they'll stall. That's what they do, delay until people forget." Noah glanced at the siblings curled together on the couch, Maya's head against her brother's shoulder. His voice dropped. "Then we won't let them forget." That night, he sat at his desk, drafting a message to Neuron Forge staff and allies. It wasn't corporate speak, it was raw. We can design better systems. Ones that track sibling bonds the way we track user engagement. Ones that flag trauma patterns like error codes. The world says child welfare is too complex to fix. Complexity is just a problem waiting for engineers and advocates to team up. He read it aloud to Plea and Owen, his voice thick but certain. Owen whistled. "That's not just defense. That's offense." Plea nodded. "This isn't just about winning against Cedar Ridge. It's about redefining the field. And they won't know how to fight that." But Noah wasn't thinking about headlines or strategy in that moment. He was watching Leo tug the llama plush over Maya's sleeping hand, whispering something only she could hear. He understood then. The most fragile bonds were also the most powerful. And if the system had spent years underestimating that truth, it was about to learn otherwise. The smear collapsed faster than Cedar Ridge expected. By morning, Owen's evidence-heavy timeline was trending. Screenshots of vendor invoices stamped with dates, memos instructing staff to separate siblings, receipts proving money flowed every time a child was labeled behavioral. Reporters no longer asked if Noah staged the rescue. They asked how many other children had been hidden away. Noah didn't celebrate. He barely paused. He sat with Plea in the loft's conference nook, whiteboard covered in diagrams. "We can't just expose," he said, tapping the marker against his palm. "We have to build something better. If all we do is tear Cedar Ridge down, another place will rise and repeat the cycle." Plea leaned forward. "What are you proposing?" He exhaled. "We take Hestia off the shelf. Not the robots, but the idea. A system that detects suffering early, prevents harm, rewards family unity instead of separation. We launch it as the Forge Family Initiative." Owen wheeled closer, eyebrows raised. "Catchy. But what does that mean practically?" Noah paced, hands moving as if sketching blueprints in the air. "Emergency microgrants for kinship placements. A sibling bond score algorithm baked into placement software, telehealth trauma care for kids, accessible anywhere, and a dashboard for case managers that flags isolation patterns like red lights. No more basements in the dark." Leo looked up from the couch, clutching Maya's llama plush. "A dashboard?" Noah crouched, softening his tone. "It's like a big screen that helps grown-ups see if something's wrong. So no one can hide kids like you and Maya again." The boy studied him, then nodded slowly. "Make it big enough so everyone sees." Plea smiled faintly. "Leave it to an 8-year-old to distill policy into one line." Owen cracked his knuckles. "I'll start building the public ledger. Open metrics. Competing CEOs can't just applaud, they'll have to contribute." Noah straightened, resolve hardening. 50 million. Seed endowment from my own equity. I'll challenge every peer in tech to match." Plea frowned. "That's a massive personal risk. The board already shelved my best work," Noah cut in, voice low but firm. "I'm done waiting for consensus. This isn't about market timing. It's about kids." Silence settled. Then Owen grinned. "You're going to set half of Silicon Valley on fire." "Good," Noah said. "Let it burn if it clears space for something better." That afternoon, he stood before cameras again, not outside a facility, but in a small rented community hall. He unveiled the Forge Family Initiative, not with flashy demos, but with stories. Leo's voice on a recording, softly describing counting vents so Maya knew he was close. An anonymized chart showing children mislabeled as defiant when all they needed was their siblings. "This isn't charity," Noah told the room, his eyes steady. "This is design. This is fixing what we broke. And it starts today." Applause was hesitant at first, then grew steady. Plea and Owen exchanged a glance. They knew the war wasn't over. Cedar Ridge and their allies would keep fighting in court. Politicians would resist. But the narrative had shifted. Noah wasn't just a CEO in a hoodie. He was a man building a net where children wouldn't fall through. That night, back at the loft, Maya stirred in her sleep. Leo brushed hair from her forehead and whispered, "We're not in the quiet room anymore." Noah heard him, and for the first time in years, he let himself smile without reserve. Because the boy was right. They had stepped into the light, and there was no going back. The courtroom was hushed, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and too many unasked questions. Noah sat at the front table, Plea beside him, Owen a row back with a laptop open, documents queued. Across the aisle, Cedar Ridge's counsel spread binders like shields, their director stiff-backed, eyes cold. At the witness stand, Leo climbed into the chair. The bailiff adjusted the microphone, but his small voice still trembled when he spoke. "My name is Leo Alvarez. I'm 8 years old." The judge, a silver-haired woman with clear, searching eyes, leaned forward. "Leo, can you tell us about your time at Cedar Ridge?" He gripped the llama charm, glanced at Noah, then began. They called it the quiet room. It was under the laundry. I had to count the vents so Maya could hear me through the floor. That way she knew I was still close. They said I was bad for trying to keep her safe, but I just didn't want her to cry alone. A ripple passed through the gallery. Reporters scribbled, some biting their lips to hide emotion. Cedar Ridge's attorney rose, smoothing his tie. "Leo, sometimes children imagine things, don't they?" "Isn't it possible you misunderstood?" "No," Leo cut in, voice stronger now. "I remember the cold. I remember the bucket. I remember Maya's crying stopping when I counted out loud," the attorney faltered. Plea rose. "Your Honor, we have corroboration." She handed the clerk a folder. Inside, photographs of the basement, medical notes from the pediatric trauma team, invoices for behavioral isolation retrofits Owen had uncovered. This was no child's imagination. Expert witnesses followed. A pediatrician explained dehydration markers on Maya's charts. A child welfare specialist dismantled the behavioral label, pointing out how sibling separation artificially created distress. Each testimony chipped away at Cedar Ridge's wall until only raw truth remained. The director finally took the stand, sweat glistening at his temple. His voice wavered under questioning. "We followed protocol. These children required higher levels of care." Plea cut in. "And how convenient that each time siblings were separated, your facility billed for complex care at triple rates." The director stammered. The judge's gavel rapped once, silencing the room. She turned her gaze to Noah. "Mr. Voss, why did you intervene?" Noah rose, hands steady on the table. "Because Leo asked me to pretend I was his coach. And in that moment I realized every child deserves someone who won't just pretend. Someone who will stand even when the system looks the other way." He paused, voice tightening. "I can't undo what they endured. But I can promise no one else will count vents in the dark while adults call it treatment." Silence fell, thick and unbroken, until the judge spoke. "This court finds Cedar Ridge in violation of its duty of care. Effective immediately, all children are to be removed from the facility. A receiver will be appointed to restructure placements. As for Leo and Maya Alvarez, temporary guardianship is granted to Mr. Voss, pending full home study." Gasps rippled through the room. Leo turned to Noah, eyes wide. "Does that mean—" Noah bent low, whispering so only he and Maya could hear. "It means you're coming home with me." Maya clutched the llama, plush tighter, her small voice barely audible. "No more quiet room?" Noah shook his head, his chest thick with emotion. "No more quiet room, ever." The gavel struck once more, and with that sound the tide turned, for Leo, for Maya, and for a man who had finally found the one product worth all his genius and fight. 6 months later, the rain over Seattle was softer, almost gentle, when Noah pedaled alongside Leo toward the small neighborhood school near Green Lake. Leo's laughter carried on the air, clear and unburdened. His backpack bounced, a new keycard clipped to the zipper, his own name etched beside his sister's on a matching one that hung at home. Their house was no mansion. It was a craftsman cottage, 2 stories, with warm wood floors and a porch where potted plants leaned toward the light. Inside, an extra room was painted sky blue, furnished with bunk beds and shelves of donated toys, reserved for weekend respite fosters. A small safety net, just as Noah had promised. Maya sat by the window when they returned, a book open across her lap. She looked up, eyes brighter than the day he found her in the basement. "You're late," she teased, hugging the llama plush that never left her side. Leo dropped his bike helmet with a grin. "Coach made me run hills." Noah chuckled, ruffling the boy's hair. "Discipline builds strength, champ." That night, after dinner, the 3 of them crowded into the living room. Leo sprawled on the rug, scribbling a drawing of the schoolyard. Maya curled against Noah's side as he read aloud from her book, his voice calm and even. The air smelled faintly of cedar from the fireplace, warmth wrapping the room like a second blanket. On Noah's desk upstairs sat 2 folded hoodies, his own and the one he'd wrapped around Leo that first night. Beside them, 2 small Neuron Forge keycards gleamed, labeled LEO and MAYA. They weren't just access passes, they were anchors, daily reminders of promises kept. The Forge Family Initiative had grown beyond Seattle. 5 pilot counties now used its sibling bond algorithm and trauma dashboard. Emergency grants had placed dozens of kids with relatives instead of strangers. And Noah wasn't alone. Other CEOs, challenged publicly, had matched his endowment. A quiet revolution had begun, sparked by a boy's plea at a train platform. Later, as the children drifted to sleep, Noah stood in the doorway, watching their breathing steady in tandem. For years he had carried fog, shelved projects, half-kept promises, brilliance with no tether. But here, in this modest home, the fog had cleared. He finally understood what mattered. He whispered, almost to himself, "The best product I'll ever ship is a safe family." Maya stirred in her sleep, hugging the llama plush closer. Leo mumbled something about practice tomorrow, and Noah smiled, closing the door softly. Outside, the rain eased to a mist. Inside, the house held a new kind of silence, peaceful, grounded, the sound of a promise fulfilled.